happening, Tom?
Not much, Matt. How you doing?
I am currently working through a grapefruit related
Fiasco.
fiasco. Um, my eyes, man, are like literally on fire. I didn't even think about this as like a possible health hazard, but holy shit. So just to kind of bring everyone up to snuff here, before this show, I'm like, oh, you know what? I want a little bit of lemon. I saw it sitting there. I got an aroma diffuser in my office. I'm like,
Yeah.
lift. And then the chef in me comes out, and I'm like, all right, well, what else can I, I
Go
don't
for a full citrus bouquet.
I don't usually do one flavor. I don't know if you fuck with aroma diffusers too much, but
I got one sitting over here. We talked about the pine and everything.
Right.
I've read some really good studies on frankincense.
Sure.
Yeah, so
especially in winter months, like that frankincense stuff, like they use that in that one called Thieves.
Yeah,
and
with like, cinnamon and myrrh and
right. It's like the whole.
And there's actually, oddly, I don't know how strong the studies are because I really was like, oh, it smells nice. I don't care.
Yeah,
but there are some studies that say it does help with immune system function.
Well, that's what. Yeah, that Thieves in particular trades on that, don't they?
Yeah.
So I rarely use these things in isolate, right? I've often found that even the pine thing, which we've talked about before, got me on the aromatherapy bandwagon in the first place. Actually, I was like, well, I mean, if this one study replicates, the stress reduction effects of forest bathing, right? If they can do that with that, like, what else could it do? And I kind of was like, all right, well, what's the worst that happens? My room smells amazing.
And this is really kind of where we land on a lot or right? It's not going to hurt. So,
right. Whether I buy into the fact that it cures pancreatic cancer or whatever, whatever audacious claim somebody's making, I'm like, I don't know, maybe it does, but in the off chance and the likely chance it doesn't do that. It at least makes my room smell nice. Well, in this case, I poured off half a bottle of it in and I turned it on. And within 5 seconds, I felt like the massive citrus burst was burning through my skin.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like, you ever squeeze the rind and you get like a little shot in the eye. It's murder.
Yeah, it's What are you up to?
Man, I was going to tell you. I don't think we talked about this. The official Comcast Rise program. I got a grant, right?
Oh.
So today was the celebration,
Sweet.
and I know I talk a lot. I'm pretty animated in my clinic, but social events. I'm a freaking wallflower. I'm like I don't need to talk to anybody here. And it's nothing personal. I mean, there was some very charming people there, and it's just like, no, this is a little bit too much. But it came with a commercial that's going to be on the air for the next 6 months.
Sweet.
Actually.
That's very cool.
Comcast hooks you up with a little bit faster internet, gives you some tech, and they give you a small cash prize. I'm not turning my nose up at it, but
sure.
They had this little award ceremony where they had some pretty big keynote speakers come in, and it was a good time. It's just
cool. How do you get involved in that? Do you submit yourself? Did somebody submit you?
Look, there's a couple of websites that I was turned on to for grants, and I got to tell you, we talk about AI a lot, right? So there was a Comcast one, and there's another one which I don't know if I can talk about yet, but I was awarded another one from a relatively big company here in Maryland, and they do rounds, right? So it's like they're gonna give 3 times a year, maybe they'll give this award away, and they the first round I didn't hit with Comcast, right? And they said, oh, round 2's open, please apply again. So I took all my answers, and I didn't use Chat GPT. I used Bard, Google Bard.
Sure. And
I said, here's the question. Here's what my answer was. Tell me what's wrong with it. And they was like, this isn't bad. Here, you highlighted this, you did that. Well, no. How about you take those comments, rewrite this for me in a way that's more compelling to a somebody that might be awarding this grant. I hit 2 out of 2 doing that.
That's so funny.
It was the weirdest thing where I was like, oh, thanks. and it's in a very good way. They're trying to incentivize women-owned, veteran-owned, Black-owned, or minority, generally misrepresented. And I found myself to be the token white guy in the room in a lot of these cases.
Are you secretly
I think they're looking at me. They're like, "Well, is he gay then?"
Yeah.
Like,
he must be.
He could be military. He's got a shaved head.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, I mean that's funny.
No,
because everything you just said, I was waiting for like whatever you like
when we get to Tom
resembles you, and like nothing was coming to mind.
Mediocre middle-aged white guy. Yeah, that's it.
Ding, ding, ding.
You're right. Things do always go in my favor. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, totally my bad. Yeah. Well, hey, congrats. That's cool. That's very
cool.
It
was super cool. And the commercials are already getting the phone to ring a little bit more, which once again, no one can complain about.
Sure.
So we're happy
going forward. Well, awesome. Yeah. I think that's awesome because it just really is. It's funny how advanced we get. At the end of the day, marketing is just so fundamentally simple. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's
say the right thing to the right person.
Yeah, and like mean it, right? Like there's an authenticity component to that I think gets overlooked a lot. But it's like you can't really fake that part, So like I feel like people. I think especially in sort of a more esoteric space like you deal in, like, I mean, people aren't coming to you like with black and white problems, looking for black and white answers.
Sometimes, even sometimes if the complaint is very black and white, like they got low back pain, they're on the table and you're treating them and then all of a sudden something comes up or, they'll tell you something and you're like, oh, we can work on that too. And they're like, I didn't know you could work with emotional stuff.
Well, my point on that though is that people who are in that headspace, I think, are able to more accurately and quickly deduce honesty in other people, right? Like there's a bullshit meter there that's pretty sensitive, and so like if you deliver a good message on the right medium, saying the right things, and say it in a way that you mean it. It's sort of a magical combination that just works, period. 100% of the time.
It is so funny because, I told you the story about my mentor, like somebody thinking like, oh, he was some kind of guru that studied at an ashram and stuff. And, it's funny because the day before my social meter was like dead. And I was supposed to meet a friend of mine at a networking, like an entrepreneur network thing. And, the network pitches to like possible candidates, like, hey, join our thing. And it was free. And then there was a second event and they're like the power of intentionality, right? Oh, that sounds sexy.
Yeah.
And then they sent the guy's bio and, oh shit, I probably said too much because I'm going to have some like hippie Australian dude kick the shit out of me. But, I looked at the photo and my friend was like, that looks interesting. And I'm like, it's a white dude with like kind of long hair, but not too long, kind of super frizzy, linen, deep V shirt, mala beads, and he's holding his chest. And immediately I'm like, oh, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
like immediately. I'm like, what? Why? There's 10,000 of them in my field.
Sure.
And then I'm just like, no. Maybe I'm being a dick. The guy that's saying let's go is like, he's pretty tuned in. Like I trust him. And then I clicked on the video that they sent to like, come see this guy's previous. And first of all, the Australian accent on a woman, I'm like, that's sexy. On a dude, I'm like, did you get hit in the face? like, why are you talking like that? Like, now I've just pissed off an entire country.
Yeah. I mean, you're just batting 1,000 here, though.
But anyway, like I pull up to the event and it's at a country club and I'm looking around and there aren't too many people and there's no signs telling me where to go or anything. And I sat in the car for 10 minutes looking for somebody to ask. And I, walked around the main building and then I was like, you know what? Vibes off. Got in the car and left. and my friend's like, where are you? I'm like, hey, bro, you know how your wife said she couldn't get a ticket to the dinner after? She can have mine. I paid for it. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and like I got a text a few hours later. My wife said, thank you. Great.
Yeah, that's funny. So you get a little social cred out of it, and you're like, I mean, I mean, how many times have you know,
and it's not even like I didn't, you know, but to your point, like the image that was being presented was the message that was like, yeah, I don't need this.
You could be the Dalai fucking Lama, and I'm not gonna listen to you because
that motherfucker had slaves.
Yeah.
let me start throwing shade. That motherfucker had like 8,000 slaves.
Yeah. Wow.
Not a lie.
Wow. We are. So anybody else we want to put on the list to insult today?
Look at the Pope. You want to?
We'll just take it as it comes. We'll just take it as it comes. But you know what's funny though? It's funny. Marketing though is kind of like in a weird way what we want to chat about.
Oh,
tonight,
you're bringing it home. Nice.
You know, like I knew it would happen eventually. Yeah, that worked out.
Just keep going.
Yeah. So like the question always comes up. We've talked a bunch about placebo on this.
Absolutely.
On and look, anybody who is in or adjacent to study, research, anything like that is very, very, very clearly aware of placebo, right? It's a big thing.
You try and factor a lot of studies. You're trying to factor it out.
And it's funny. I haven't fact checked this in a while. They said placebo is the only treatment never funded, not a nickel, by NIH. Like literally. And I don't know if that's still true or not, or if it ever was.
That's an interesting thing because, you know, they do know that
we'll look that up while we're talking.
Every new drug that comes out has like a honeymoon period where it works as good as it's ever going to work.
Right.
You know, and normally it's because the doc goes, well, there's this new therapy and, you know, the patient gets real excited and like, oh, this could be the thing. And it works better for about 6 months.
Right.
And then
that's it.
And then the results start to like, well, it's not new anymore. You know, and I believe as patients, you go, well, maybe it wasn't working so good.
Well, in January of 2023, there is a NIH study to study brain pathways underlying the placebo effect.
Why not?
But that's January of 2023. That's a year old.
That's not even a full year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like this is a reasonably new thing. Interesting. But so we've talked about that. We're talking about marketing just now.
Yeah.
And the
two are pretty similar, aren't they?
They are very, very similar, right? So the reason this came up is I was, doing my normal thing and an article came across my desk about seasonal affective disorder. And
yeah. 'Tis the season.
And the article was in Wired, and I forget the exact name of it, but it was basically something along the lines of, so you think you have seasonal affective disorder, think again. Yeah. You don't. But does it really matter? And I was like, that. I mean, the nerd in me was like, well, I have to click on this. This is
well, and marketing isn't that clickbait right there?
Yeah, but I was like, oh, I need to know what happens here, right? And so I wanted to talk about like the studies and everything like that because it is funny. It's actually a really interesting dive for me to learn more about seasonal affective disorder, none of which I knew previously. And I actually, I think I'm if anything, I'm a right down the middle testament of how effective this has been so far, because I completely thought it was real, thought it was totally like backed by science.
I thought it was too. I mean, you hear about it from psychologists. It makes sense because you're exposed to less light. We hear about like schools in Alaska that have full spectrum lights in their gymnasiums. Hell, for years, I think I've been interviewed and I'm like, get a full spectrum light.
But so okay, put a pin in that for 3 seconds.
Yeah, please. Because I'm sorry, I'm jumping around too much.
No, I want to come right back to that, but like the thing is like you're talking about previous to this, like I have enough doctor friends to know what the DSM is, right? That giant ass book,
yeah.
Right, like that, you
mental health disorders,
that have it, right? It's in there.
Yeah.
At least I thought it was. And I wasn't wrong. It is in there. And I've had seasonal affective disorder conversations with more than a dozen people like in my life. I think it's something that has come up a lot because we live in the Northeast, one. Two, everybody who knows me knows I'm into weirdo health shit. And they're like, hey man, what do you do to fix this? And my answer is always like red light panels.
Red light therapy. Yeah. Or actually tanning booths.
Correct. Yeah. Well, I think
people
anything
will kill
on
me for saying that, but yeah.
Yeah. But my point is like, and I've noticed it myself. I go in there, strip down naked, get in my red light panel, squish between two bifold closet doors, and like just soak in full body red light for 20 minutes. And I try to do that in the wintertime, like more than not, right? Like I swear by it, but turns out like maybe my brain is just fucking with me because the gist of this article was about there has been, this didn't hit the scene until the early 80s, which I thought was also funny.
81, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And then it hits the scene and it's basically popularized and quote unquote studied by two doctors, one of which had what he self-quantified as later quantified it as seasonal affective disorder. But at the time he was just saying like, oh, I get more depressed in the winter months. And then it was almost like they were like, it was like a solution in search of a problem kind of thing, or, something like that, because it was like, well, I know I'm more depressed in the wintertime. It must be because of, and it was like,
the light. Yeah.
And then they're like, light, there's less light. But then there's these studies that, and I know you read into some studies that I didn't on this, but like
I just got firewalled too with the article. So I was like about to click on them. I'm like, God damn it. but
I was in Iceland earlier this year and I was there during a normal 50-50 split, but like talk to everybody there. The dark was about to start.
Yeah.
No, the light was about to start. Sorry. And like, I don't know that I would be able to like function in that and just that whole, like it's dark for months and it's light for months. Like I don't think I'm strong enough.
Why would you do anything ever?
Yeah. Like why? Yeah, no, I couldn't, but
I'll see you in 6 months.
They were saying that there's not more incidents of depression seasonally in Iceland where there's zero light, or Alaska where there's zero light, right? Like,
it's such a weird thing because remember we did this thing on daylight savings time and we have all these studies and it's like, well, there seems to be something about daylight, and then in certain cultures it's like, did they just kind of just, this is how it is, we just deal with it? It's such a weird quandary, And
I always wondered like about like, let's take a more sort of easy to quantify, one, what have gay people done for millennia when it was socially completely out of the question, right? Like homosexuality, I don't think existed in different distributions over the population.
No.
I would feel that would be illogical, right? Like we didn't suddenly develop a homosexual gene.
I don't believe we got gayer. Yes.
Yeah, we definitely didn't.
That's what you're saying.
Right. So like, what did you do in that situation, right? Like, a couple 100 years ago, 2000 years ago, like you're gay. What do? You just kind of,
I almost feel that far back. It probably wasn't that bad. I think I think throughout history, there's been, cultural times across the globe where things were more accepted, and then kind of like we're almost seeing with a certain part of the population here in the States where it's like, no, we can't do that. It's like,
well,
why?
No, yeah, but
your Sky Daddy said no.
Well, right. But like the other side, but at the same time, like if you're in a society and you are gay in a time or place,
and you're going to hide. Yeah, you're going to hide. You still exist. You're just going to hide yourself.
But you're just not going to be right. You're just not going to be gay in that time period or in that place, right? And I feel like
you probably still are. You probably just are living with a mask, a costume.
No, exactly, and that's my point. I feel like it's kind of the same thing. It's like in your brain, like maybe you just put it out because you're like, look, situationally, I can't change this. So I'm just going to like ignore it. Right. I'm just going to
I think the same thing with like ADHD or autism spectrum.
But I mean that's another good question though. ADHD. I mean, is that a real thing?
But is it to put another thing in a textbook so we as humans know what box we fall in and what medications we should be taking? And I personally think it's a bunch of factors. I mean, I think a lot of kids just got the shit knocked out of them until they settled down when they were younger, generations ago.
Well, and
or they were labeled stupid or uneducated or hyperactive, and we're just gonna, I guess you're gonna do something physical because we're not teaching you shit. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's my point.
I don't think the population necessarily changed. I think our observation of it changed.
Well, I think that's definitely true, but I guess in a sense of when you have something that you sort of know is there, but you just can't acknowledge because like it's not supported.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think everybody has an aunt or an uncle, or maybe you are the aunt or the uncle that had just had a same-sex roommate their whole life. Right. It's like right. What do you mean Patty is coming over with so and so again? Yeah. No, they live together. They're roommates.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Are they dating anyone?
But what's the analog with these people? Like they're just like, he's just in December, Uncle Bob is just in a corner rocking back and forth.
I mean, like the trauma of the holidays, the anxiety of dealing with your family, just the fact that you're getting another year older,
right?
The general malaise of the existence of life.
Wow.
And who knows? But I mean, it could be a combination of things that make you feel like shit. Like shitty Hallmark movies. What do you like? The fact that you're not out and active as much. I mean, there could be 10,000 reasons that you're feeling worse.
So the interesting part about this thing, and it got me thinking about all these other pieces because it is sort of an interesting question, right? Like, so I am a above average educated person in this topic in the set, right? Like
I gotcha.
Right. And I totally was 100% the opposite direction on this one. I'm like, oh no, it's absolutely legitimate. Every scientist in the world has proven it. Like, I mean, my brain, like this was like canon. And I was very, very interested to learn that is not at all the case. So let's fast forward, right? So the 80s come, they sort of acknowledge that he gets depressed and he associates it with, the winter months. So a bunch of interesting parts about this that I guess I never really sat down and thought about. But one of which is that 100% of mental illnesses in the DSM are self-reported and diagnosed off of that.
It's very hard because this is, and I've spoken to a few mental health care workers across the board, whether they were PhDs in psychiatry or LCSWs or something like that, where it is a soft medicine. Why? Because, yes, we can hook you up to a brain scan and tell what's functioning right and functioning wrong. We can look at your hormone levels. We can look at your neurotransmitter levels and say, yeah, this is probably going on. But like after that, it's like, how do you feel? I don't feel so great. Like, how do we quantify that? Well, the patient has to tell us.
Yeah. Like when you talk about, you touched on it.
Yeah.
Confirmation bias, right? If you've got suddenly, but so these two guys come up with this, right? But he's already predisposed to the fact, in my mind, this is me interpreting, right? This next part is not
he feels like shit in the winter.
He feels like shit in the winter. And he reports it as such. Now, he just happened to be the fucking psychiatrist doing the study, but they started calling all these people as a random test, and instantly all these people were like, I also feel like shit in December. Like, and all of a sudden it was enough to get an actual study funded, funny enough, here in Maryland, which I also did not know, of bipolar patients. But like now you've taken a significant step forward, and we're basically doing so on self-reported, in this case, nonetheless, by the experiment designer himself. Like, it seems a little
and I'm wondering if like, because I didn't get to see that original study. I'm sure it's in that link, but I'm firewalled now. But there was that 2019 review of literature. I looked at 41 different studies on this, and they found no significant correlation to mood and the season, if you will.
And all the arguments back and forth, I think, are actually all valid. So it's hard for me to pick a side on this one. But I mean, I think there is no side on this one, is really where I landed on this. Because one of the things that they said that I thought was really super cool, a really interesting way of looking at things, and I never thought about it. They're like, self-reporting is exactly that. It is not. Asking when it happens is a clinical question that can't really be answered by, like, you can answer it, but like, you're not going to know unless prompted. And I think that's the problem. Even the hint of this is a winter question
show some biasness.
It's going to introduce bias because like, hey, I'm getting older, right? Like, is your eyesight bad? Yes. When is it bad? And I'm like, and then somebody goes day or night.
You're reading, yeah.
And you're like, okay,
you're like, night, yeah.
Night. It's the last word out of your mouth. It's the one I recognize the most. Like that, you know.
That seems right. Yeah.
That seems right. It does that mean that my eyes are categorically less good at night? No, it just means that's what I said. And like, so that's like problem number one.
It's not hard data. I think
it's not at all hard data, but it's hard enough that we collectively accept it as canon.
Well, I do think on a big enough scale, and this is the thing that we have to do with mental health and a lot of these conditions that are self-reporting, right? It's a shame. You know, I had a similar discussion with my uncle because my uncle's a neurologist. And, you know, I said, look, I'm looking for an MD in Maryland that, you know, will kind of be a medical director for me so I can bill Medicare, right? That's all I need is their national provider ID. That's how I get in. And he goes, well, I do it. And I'm like, well, you're in PA and, you know, unless you're licensed and accepting Medicare in Maryland, you can't help. You know, so thank you, but no. But then he goes, well, what are you allowed to treat? And I'm like, well, we're only allowed to treat low back pain by diagnosis, chronic low back pain. And he goes, I understand chronic low back pain is a diagnosis code, but that's self-reported. He's like, that's a self-reported symptom. And with that, I was like, oh God, he just cracked the whole freaking, like that just destroys all of this, right? Because low back pain is not, you know, neuralgia. It is not spinal stenosis. It's not any condition. It's not nerve impingement. It is not an actual reason. It is just, hey, my back hurts. Yeah, you know, and it was very interesting when he said that to me because I'm like, that's all that ever goes on my insurance claims. Why? That's 80% of the people I see, you know?
Well, and actually it's funny you touch on a different part of the problem is like, did we design the system like that on purpose because humans are too lazy to figure out how to do it better? Like the insurance companies are like,
well, yeah, you know, the insurance companies have like, how do we save money in this, right? You know, you start hanging heavy diagnosis on people. Now it's like you need surgery and you need this and you're going to need rehab and you're going to, you know, feel like your back just hurts. Take an Advil.
Right.
Yeah, you know. And I'll shit on the insurance companies all day too, but
no, I get that, but I mean,
those are the ones that'll probably end up killing me, not the Dalai Lama.
Yeah. They'll erase you in the middle of the night. They'll come down to the clinic.
I will be deleted from the system, if you will.
So what's fascinating about this to me from an academic side is that you got this thing that kind of came about, I think, under sort of like questionable means, right? It got legitimized. I mean, I don't want to take that away. I mean, they did legitimize it, but then when things went awry and they started to see chinks in the armor, there was almost like this combatant defense of the existence of seasonal
I gotta find another article, and it's from a while ago, but there was this Greek medical doctor, and he might have just been Greek by last name and, you know, an American doctor, And he compiled all this research on like 6 of the most used, I guess, statements in medicine. Like, oh, you don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, right? And he does a meta-analysis. He looks at all these studies and he goes, we're telling the patients bullshit. None of this is true. And here he is. He gets in front of a big audience and he's like, look, there's 1,000 doctors in this room that are they're gonna murder me. When I say all this controversial stuff, and every one of the doctors goes, yeah, I can see that being possible. We can totally be wrong. They're like, every one of them was like, yeah, that actually, I always wondered about that. And this was commonly, and you know what ends up happening? They still go out and say that, give that same advice. Why? We got no new data. We got nothing else to tell them.
Right.
I got to find that.
Yeah, please do. That sounds funny. I'd love to see that. But yeah, I mean, there's been lots of studies now, right, that go into this. And it's funny because if this was anything else, what they say, the difference between a squirrel and a rat is the bushy tail, and it makes all the difference in the world, right? And I think there's something to that, right? Like, I mean, this is kind of a sexy diagnosis because it explains why you're such a dick around Christmas time. But
that's a thing about labeling ourselves too. I found the article, by the way.
Like, did you?
We want to have a bin, right, to put ourselves in.
Yeah, I mean, that must run deep with us because
it's inherent in who we are. Like, that exercise, that who am I? Meditation, right? It's like, you're not your job. Who am I? Well, you're not.
But you have to peel that back 20 layers before you get to that.
But you don't even get there. I don't think. I think you're like you either become enlightened or cease to exist. I'm not sure.
Yeah. There was an exercise similar to that one that somebody told me is answer, what was it, 7 times? Ask the same question 7 times, or ask 7 questions.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can see that.
And it's interesting because if you and I've done this a bunch, and it's a fun exercise to do with people who've never done it. You ask a question, you say, ask me a question, and then you just, and then you just keep firing back. And by the time you get to the 7th question, you're so deep in some like fucking philosophical
weird ass
loophole.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't even know.
That's like, even when they ask, like, this is a psychology exercise where you'll ask somebody, well, what goes wrong then? She's like, well, what happens if that happens? And you go down to the rabbit hole, and it comes down to our fundamental fear of death. Right? I mean, you're like, well, what happens if you don't? What happens if you don't get that assignment done at work? Well, I'm going to get chewed out by the boss. Okay, well, then what'll happen? Well, I probably fuck up again. I'll get yelled at again. Okay, then what'll happen? Well, they'll end up docking my salary. Okay, well, and then what'll happen? Well, eventually I'll get fired, and then like eventually you're dead. Is the end? Is the end of that hole?
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, you're worried about your mortality, and here you are. This is a paper tiger kind of situation, but you're full in, going, oh my god, this is going to kill me.
Yeah.
It is so weird how that label is almost the opposite of that, right? Like, this is who I am. This is why I'm this way. You're giving yourself.
I think this is exactly why we have like so much hate going around. I think in my mind is that the internet has made it really easy to belong to a very, very, very small club.
Very niche group.
You know what I mean? Like, and that feels good to people. Right. And listen,
it is so funny because you'll watch a group fraction too. You're like, become 2 different factions almost, where it's like, so-and-so said this. Well, fuck that.
Yeah,
and it's like, you guys are 99.9% on the same page.
Right.
One person posted the wrong meme and now fuck that guy.
It's funny. I got into like doing astrophotography.
Yeah, man. You showed me some stuff. It's awesome.
Well, I found a place that I entered a competition last year and won the photo of the day. Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. Right. If 20 people saw that, I would be just absolutely dumbfounded. Right. Like, I mean, and yet, not going to lie, I was like, for that day, I'm like, yeah, You might know me from Astrophoto of the Day fame.
By the way, I'm updating my CV.
2022.
Prestigious award of January 19th.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Exactly. But it's funny how that really ignited me in that activity, right? Like I felt I rode that high for a couple months where I was like,
look, man, you do it though, because I remember talking to one of my martial arts teachers, right? And there was an international tournament. I didn't go. My friend went, and he came back with a gold medal at a world tournament.
Wow.
And everybody's like, "Oh my God, how many people did you beat?" He goes, "Dude, there's one guy. He just started doing push hands." and my look, the teacher goes, "Look, no one was there, man. You've got a gold medal." like, fuck you, you're a world champion.
Yeah.
It's like, take the win, dude. Yeah,
take the win. Yeah.
It's like,
it is funny though, because what's the root cause of that, right? Like you're like, I don't, it's almost like I don't deserve this. So I'm going to come up with all these reasons why.
But there's going to be somebody that's like, yeah, that's right. I'm the world champion. Right. And they're not going to know that like, there's literally a dude that just was like around the corner that didn't enter that tournament. They're going to toss them around like a rag doll.
Well, what about the guy who wrote The Art of Learning? What's his name? Who won the push hands tournament?
Ferriss, Tim Ferriss.
No, other guy.
Oh, I know, but he did something similar. He studied the rules at Sancho.
He was judo.
Sancho. It was platform fighting. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Sanda. No, Sandas are drills. Sorry.
Josh Waitskin.
Okay.
So this guy, fun. It's a fun book, actually, if you've not read it, The Art of Learning.
I have not.
Yeah, fun book. But he basically was a chess, not grandmaster. I know that's a reserved term, but really fucking good chess player, like world champion for years, like a long time. Like I think Bobby Fischer beat his record, or he beat Bobby Fischer's record for some, I don't know. They were close, but he's like Bobby Fischer kind of good at chess.
Good.
Yeah, he was fucking crazy. And then he went on to become a world push hands champion.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he started out, you know what? Maybe that was, he ended up becoming very good, but I think he started out really kind of like knowing, just being smarter than anybody else.
That accounts for a lot. I mean, it's a strategic.
And what the Ferris one didn't he find out that like if you push somebody out of bounds three times or something?
He just dehydrated himself so he could go down like 3 weight classes, and like once you push off the platform 3 times, the other person's disqualified. So he used no technique. He just was bigger and just shoved everybody off.
Right. And they like went on to change the rules the following year, didn't they? Like,
oh yeah, because he was a dick. Yeah,
because he was a dick. Right.
He was not doing it in the spirit of the competition. He wasn't squaring off with people. He was like, "Look, you're gonna throw that foot. Great, I'm gonna just run at you."
I'm just, I am the proverbial bull in the proverbial china shop.
I got 60 pounds on you, bro. Do it.
Yeah, right. That's funny. But yeah, I mean, like that's the kind of thing. Like it. So if everybody thinks that this thing is real to the point where they're going to fight and argue over it not being real, which, like I said, if we were talking about anything else, let's just put this in other terms, right? Imagine if somebody said, this cancer treatment will likely kill you.
Yeah.
And they're like, but we've been doing this for years. My grandmother told me it worked. We just don't believe you. I'm sorry. Like
I mean, we are talking about a time where we had to like say, please don't eat the Tide Pods. Mr. President, bleach does not go internally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we are at this time in our evolution. So,
I mean, I guess that's a good point.
I would just say.
Now, here's a question. Doesn't that make, in an age of stupidity, doesn't that actually make this problem much worse?
I think at a magnitude, because like, hey, bro, it's not flat. No, it totally is. All right. Well, I can show you pictures from outer space. No, those are all CGI.
Yeah.
Okay, so CGI is real.
Yeah. CGI is real.
The Earth being flat, also real.
Also real. Right.
Okay.
No, I mean, I actually think it's fun to talk to those kind of people. I actually have never met in person a flat earther. But funny enough, my wife works with a woman who is engaged to a guy who is a flat earther.
Oh God, we all have to have dinner.
I mean,
so I don't know. I'm going to convince him to walk right off the edge of the earth.
So can you imagine being in a room with this guy, right? And so now,
what's going to be scary is you're going to tell me like he's got like postgraduate degrees.
He's a lawyer.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. Like it's like
holy fuck.
Yeah, it's like he's like a real adult
person, like
and so here's the thing, they're engaged, and my wife was like, sidebars with her one day. She's like, how do you do that? I think first the question was sort of like, so about this flat earth thing, do you? And I envision it being one of those, no, hold on, before you even finish this question, let's be crystal clear on one thing. like I am absolutely of the mind that we are on a round planet.
I love that. I love that. I mean, I want to know this man.
I'll be honest with you. I don't
for
know
like
if
10 minutes.
I don't know if I could hold it together for a dinner with somebody like that. I mean, I'd like to wink at you as I tell you I'm a tolerant person with stupidity like that, but I am absolutely not.
He would kick the shit out of me because I'd be laughing the whole time.
I couldn't even keep it straight.
I'm like, I don't like, how did you pass a bar?
Yeah.
Are we going to get in trouble? Is your wife's friend?
Yeah. What's even funnier is that like, in light of like this conversation being like better, Bill Nye like ostensibly lost a debate to an evolution in an evolution versus creationism debate. In my mind, sort of lost that debate because he just did not present well, even though like the whole time I'm going, this should have been the easiest debate in the history of fucking mankind. And here, but the other guy weirdly was just fucking really prepared for this debate. And Bill Nye was kind of like, this is so obvious that I'm not even sure why I'm having this conversation.
See, but like that's like, what is it? Don't play chess with a pigeon because it's going to shit all over the board and strut around like it won anyway. Yeah. Like, I mean, like in certain things, you just don't punch down because it's just not worth it.
Yeah, no, it's like one of those. Yeah. So, but yeah, I've never met one in person, but I do agree with you. It might be fun for a minute. I think it couldn't be dinner. I mean, cup of coffee I'm in for. Maybe a drink, but like, I
don't even know. I don't even, because immediately I'm ordering more drinks than I know I should drink.
Yeah, well,
I mean, like just just leave the fireball here. No,
I'd
it's horrible.
Really I hate that shit. To like ask ahead of time. How much information am I going to get out of you tonight? Because that's going to gauge what I do next. Like I'm either ordering a bottle of vodka or I'm ordering a single vodka.
Like he goes, I'm a flat earther. You're like, do you guys have bottle service?
Yeah, and do you have a 6-bottle discount? Because this might be a long night.
Call me an Uber now.
Yeah.
Why?
Oh man!
Just have him take me right to the hospispel. I'm going to have.
How do we find a flat earther to be on the show? Because that
I think there's got to be a Discord server or something.
Like I mean, it has nothing to do with health, unfortunately, except for like my mental health for being able.
I don't know. I mean, we could do a deep dive into psychosis, right?
There's a fucking psychology behind flat earthing that I don't understand, but maybe we should talk. Maybe we should find an expert on flat earth psychology. There's got to be someone out there.
There's got to be. I also like an even more interesting question to me is because like we are making fun of them. What's our flat earth? Like what is the thing that we think is so undeniable? Because here we are having a conversation about SAD, and both of us were like, yeah, SAD's a thing.
Yeah, and that, I mean, and that's kind of like all pulls together through that thread, right? Because like you kind of think you're like, a lot of these things we hold true out of like an ideological, lens, not through a fact-based lens. Because if we were really concerned with facts, we'd realize that fucking sad is not really like a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah. And that we're reporting a set of feelings that could have multiple reasons. I also feel like it's sitting on my bookshelf, and it's an old book, and it's like back in the day when you actually had to go buy books. And you're like, all right, I'm going in for this one book, and you leave with $100 worth of books. But it's called The Biology of Belief. I'm wondering if I need to crack that one open and get through it.
That sounds interesting.
Just to have a conversation about this that's a little bit more, and who knows, the way science is moving now, half that damn book could be obsolete.
Oh, for sure. But
they'll be like, this was so dumb.
I mean, I like reading those articles because it's funny. Like the more you do it, I don't know if you've seen this too, but like I can almost like, I've been alive long enough where I could be like, oh, look, that I remember when that was true and now it's not, but it always helps me. Yeah. But it always helps me to understand like the provenance of an idea, because then you're like, you can kind of follow the thought train down the road and you'd be like, oh, I see where they were thinking here. And it actually, I found it to be helpful in sort of determining like, okay, is there logic sound here? Like, is this a trustable idea? And I sometimes, if I don't understand the idea, but I understand the thought process, I'm kind of making it on that. Right. By the way, I found a great article based doing a quick little research on here, why people believe the earth is flat and we should listen to anti-vaxxers. I'm like, okay, I'm in. I'll follow up.
So look, I will give the anti-vaxxers a little bit more of a leg to stand on, even though their science is super shitty.
So why is that though? Like, why do they get a pass?
Why? Because this comes down to that n equals 1 versus n equals infinity, right? There is no drug. There's no medication. I don't know anybody like this, but there are people that will take the regular dose of a medication and fucking die. Mm-hmm. So vaccine reactions do happen. And sometimes they're mild and sometimes they're pretty damn bad. But that doesn't mean from a public health standpoint, I don't adamantly support vaccines. Yes, from a public health standpoint, we need to do vaccines.
Sure.
And that's a shitty thing to say, because it's like, well, what if it's your kid that has the reaction? What if it's your family that dies? Well, that's fucked up, right?
It is, but I said the same thing
here. N equals 1 thing, yeah. But flat Earth, I don't know what you gain by digging in your heels, on that one. You're not saving anybody's life.
We talked about it tonight. We know exactly what they get. They get to feel like they're part of a micro niche community that.
Okay. You know what I mean? All right, I'll give you that. But like, I would rather collect, like pretty rocks or something.
That's you. Your preference.
Why? This is a pretty rock, Matt. You might not think it's a pretty rock, but it's pretty to me.
Yeah.
It's all right though. It's cool.
All right. I could jaw on about this forever. What are you up to?
Man, I finished the book, and thank you for the foreward. I think I said that last week.
To see the book.
They did do some grammatical and layout stuff to your foreword, but it's they prettied it up so it fits nicely.
Sure.
And our buddy Joe was like, dude, I see this with a course. I see this with the supplies. And I'm like, bro, here's where I ordered this off Alibaba. Yeah. Here's the framework for the course.
Sure.
Here's, so when I got the green light there, but we start promoting the sale of the book December 7th.
Sweet.
So that week I have to have the course in the box ready to go, to be able to say, look, if you pre-order the book, you get a discount on the course.
So that was all part of the book, was a course.
Well, so the idea with this is, and this is so painful to talk about, is like transitioning out of clinic a little bit, right? Like I'm the senior practitioner, which I don't feel that way, but then I'm like, somebody asks me a question. I'm like, oh, you can do this, you can do that, you can do that. How do you know all that? Well, I've been doing this for 23 years.
Right.
And you get out that far, and not only do you have your own clinical experience, but you can see how big this massive animal that we call East Asian medicine is. And because of that, you need to be able to do something, and teaching in an acupuncture school is not going to pay my bills.
Sure.
So if I become somebody that passes this information on to the masses in some way, and let's face it, this book is not War and Peace. This book is not Wuthering Heights. This book is not, Catcher in the Rye, or whatever flavor of book gets you. I'm not going to get the notoriety just off the book. It's not longevity, but what is it? It's a practical book to teach you a skill. And some people are visual learners. Some people are auditory learners. Let's make sure everyone's okay there. So the course is part of the universe that this kind of information lives in. Let's say it that way.
Cool. Well,
yeah, man. What are you up to?
I am, what am I doing? I'm actually working on my first little bit of AI right now, which is exciting.
Oh, sweet, man.
Yeah. I think it's, I think I've sort of, as with everything AI related, we are all constantly sharpening our pencil in terms of what we, know and like how we process different data bytes. And
it's so crazy.
I think what
it is all so crazy.
What I think I've come up with most recently is that, just like any other cool idea, AI came out. It was still is a great party trick. But slowly, very, very slowly, much slower than is purported in the news cycle. People are starting to kind of get glimmers of like, well, I could use it to do this. And
I feel like that's like anything. It's almost, you'll always have your early adopters. You'll always have like you could do this with it. And now we've got like enough critical mass using it that I think people are starting to go, oh, there's something here more than just like a little fun little thing to ask questions to.
Right. And I think that it's going to be a few years before it's so ubiquitous that like everything's AI'd. So I think there's an opportunity to sort of be very useful to clients.
The evolution.
Yeah. And make some cool stuff. So we're starting modest and small, doing a little research type thing. But
so do you have to do your own kind of like, do you have to get training in it? Like, I don't even know how.
It's programming language. It's all programming.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's right up my
You're already living in that space. Yeah.
And I think it's actually funny because my actual paper from university is in art. I have a degree in figure drawing. So this is decidedly not technological, right? I mean, it's very, very not technical.
Yeah, man.
I happen to have another degree in graphic design, which was not
closer.
Always technical. Yeah. It has become, since actually starting with the year of my graduation, moving on, it just has always gotten more digital. But back when I graduated, it was really like, there were teachers at the school who used to teach hot glue, paste up graphic design, where you'd build it on a board, glue it to a board, take a picture of it, and that was your print, right? Like, and so,
wow.
And like that's how it was done up until the 90s, into the 90s.
Now we got the Canva.
Yeah. And now we have what I went to college for 4 years. That degree can be done with a $9 a month subscription to Canva, more or less.
I mean, it's so crazy because we're talking about AI taking everybody's jobs, yet it just changed how you work. Not AI, but technology changed how you work. Not that you have to.
What I think is
depressing because I don't want to work anymore.
I know. Well, what I find funny about all the technology that came out. Every technology in creative space and entertainment space, to me, follows like one basic guideline. People want to be maximum happy for the minimal amount of effort.
Absolutely.
And like, that's it. It doesn't get more basic than that, right? So if you could deliver a product that gets people happy for almost no effort, then it's going to make you $1 billion. And Canva's a great example, right?
Canva's a great example.
For better or for worse, the headphones that I'm wearing right now are 20 years old, probably 22 years old, right? They were top of the line at the time, studio reference headphones. They're the width of the spectrum that they can reproduce is really wide. It's like, and when you're hearing music on here, especially high fidelity music, from a FLAC or something like super uncompressed, it sounds fucking amazing. Like, it is decidedly not an AirPod, but AirPods are small, they're discreet, they're highly portable. And as a result, if you walk down the street, you see 99% of the people wearing a fucking AirPod in their ear because it's, it's ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous, yeah.
So if you're going to make something and you want it to sell 1 billion copies of itself, then you got to make the AirPod, and Canva is the AirPod. It's not the best audio quality, right? Like,
absolutely not. Yeah.
But it's fucking convenient, and it basically scratches the itch that 99% of the population has, which is, I need a business card. Great. There's like 3 or 4 basic
You don't
layouts.
need Banksy to come in and do an entire...
right. And like, the fact is like, if you looked at 1,000 business cards at random, there's probably half a dozen templates for what a business card is. Now, the logos are different, the typeface is different, the paper's different, blah, blah,
but
blah.
It's the same thing.
But it's the same thing. So if you just paid attention and you made a business card template that had those 10 versions and then 10 derivations of those and 10 derivations of each of those, you're like, look, I've got 100 options. Sure, I'll take that one.
Almost everybody would find something in there. Yeah.
Right. Like, so I don't know. It's going to be fun anyway. That's what I'm working on, trying to see what we can do.
Cool, man. That's pretty awesome.
Well, Tom, it's been real.
Yeah, it has been.
Thank you, sir. To see you
take it easy.
Next time. Later.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.